This video is designed to give you some close reading and annotation strategies that will promote your comprehension and analytical thinking as you read works of fiction. Do you hate annotating? Is it because you were told that every page of your book should look like this? That would be insanity. If you were given a one-page short story or article, that could be appropriate. But doing this amount of annotation on every page of a larger work would be futile. It actually interferes with your thinking. You shouldn't force observations as you're reading just to fill the page. That's a waste of your time. Conversely, this is not useful, right? Simply highlighting indicates nothing. You're not sharing your thinking here. If you do notice something, you need to say what you notice. That's what annotation is. You're not just highlighting, you're taking notes. Notice that this page isn't insanely full, but what is highlighted has notes to show thinking. Annotating is about thinking. Really significant moments in the plot or character development ultimately will have contribution to theme. So it's worth your time to really invest in those pages, right? Should every page look like this? No, like we said. But the really important, significant moments that contribute to theme will probably look like this, and that means it's going to be worth referencing over again in class discussion, in writing assignments, and so on. There are a lot of different strategies for annotating, so don't overwhelm yourself with device hunting, right? Start with the basics. What is even going on? Mark questions that you can bring up for discussion in class, things that you don't understand, things that you want to explore further outside of yourself. A good way to maintain your comprehension is being really intentional about mapping out the plot by adding a short summary of important events and characterization details at the beginning of each chapter. This is also helpful when you're looking for relevant text evidence during an essay or Socratic seminar, class discussion, things like that. There are other strategies that your teachers might have told you about, like shared inquiry, marking your noticings and wonderings on a first read, or looking for the signposts listed here as you read closely, which correspond to literary devices and elements. Learning different techniques will ultimately empower you to find what works best for you. What we want you to eventually do independently with confidence is thoughtfully consider the author's specific use of literary elements and devices in their work. These can include characterization and conflict, subplots, the setting, literary devices such as figurative language, imagery, diction, syntax, symbolism, and so on. The author's craft, those stylistic choices. Ultimately, how do all of these things contribute to thematic development? I say development because we don't want to wait until the end of a book to identify theme. Note topics that emerge along the way and your observations about how the author's use of literary devices and elements in the context of the book's plot, that will enable you to make substantiated inferences about the author's message, which is theme. Right? All of these little pieces fit together to contribute to the author's overall purpose and message. So what does this actually look like in action? We're going to close read a page and a half of the first chapter of Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card called Third. Ender's Game is a science fiction young adult novel set in a future where Earth is at war with an alien race, and training people to battle them starts in childhood. The main character is Andrew, nicknamed Ender, and he's 6 years old at the start of the book. The book opens with a mysterious scene where adults are removing a monitor from the back of his neck before he goes to school for like a normal day. We're starting where a group of classmates are bullying Ender. I'm going to show you what close reading and annotating looks like as we read through this page. Like I said, starting in the middle of that action, this is the last page or so of the first chapter. Oh, gonna fight me, huh? Gonna fight me 30. Okay, so we know the chapter is called Third, so that has some significance. We can tell that this is derogatory, meaning it's meant to be an insult. We don't really know what that means. That's something to think about. The people behind Ender grabbed at him to hold him. Ender did not feel like laughing, but he laughed. You mean it takes this many of you to fight 1/3? We're people, not thirds. Turd face, you're about as strong as a fart. Okay, if we're taking a look at the derogatory language here, turd face, fart, that's pretty normal for 6-year-old insults, right? The worst thing you can say to someone. This is not surprising of these characters. However, you take a look at what they say before, we're people, not thirds. That indicates a deeper systemic issue of the society. Is there a class system? I mean, this is totally dehumanizing, right? They literally said, we're people, not thirds. And they're saying, Ender's a third, therefore not a person. That's pretty crazy. And again, 6-year-olds are saying this. So that's an important characterization there. But they let go of him. And as soon as they did, Ender kicked out high and hard, catching Stilson square in the breastbone. He dropped. It took Ender by surprise. He hadn't thought to put Stilson on the ground with one kick. It didn't occur to him that Stilson didn't take a fight like this seriously, that he wasn't prepared for a truly desperate blow. For a moment, the others backed away, and Stilson lay motionless. They were all wondering if he was dead. Jeez. Okay, again, 6-year-olds battling here, and they're legitimately wondering if Ender killed his classmate. The society is pretty crazy. Ender, however, was trying to figure out a way to forestall vengeance. Okay, what does that mean? Forestall vengeance. Again, this is interesting word choice to characterize a 6-year-old's thoughts. Forestalling vengeance means preventing payback. Okay, so he's being strategic here. To keep them from taking him in a pack tomorrow. Okay, so there's some context clues in case you didn't know what those words meant. I have to win this now and for all time, or I'll fight it every day and it will get worse and worse. Okay, we have a shift here in point of view, right? We've been dealing in third person, some unnamed narrator observing a scene from a distance, saying Ender did this, Ender did that. But here we have, I have to do this. So we know this point of view shift indicates character's intimate thoughts, right? This is a true reflection of what Ender is really thinking about, not someone else's perception. That's really interesting. Ender knew the unspoken rules of manly warfare. Manly, that's interesting word choice here. Even though he was only 6, it was forbidden to strike the opponent who lay helpless on the ground. Only an animal would do that. So Ender walked to Stilson's supine body and kicked him again, viciously in the ribs. Wow. Okay, so we have this transition here, this conjunction that indicates some sort of conclusion, right? This happened, and so this happened, right? It's related to the previous statement. This sentence contradicts that previous statement. It shows intention on Ender's part, right? Intentional strategy. That is shocking for a 6-year-old, right? He said he knew the rules of manly warfare. He was forbidden to strike the opponent who was helpless, like an animal, and so he did it anyway. Did it on purpose, intentionally contradicting those expectations. That's insane characterization for this 6-year-old. Stilson groaned and rolled away from him. Ender walked around and kicked him again in the crotch. Jeez. There's a reason we use the phrase below the belt, right? It's playing dirty. Here it's literal. Again, he's being super intentional about his viciousness. Stilson could not make a sound. He only doubled up and tears streamed out of his eyes. Then Ender looked at the others coldly. You might be having some idea of ganging up on me. You could probably beat me up pretty bad. But just remember what I do to people who try to hurt me. From then on, you'd be wondering when I'd get you and how bad it would be. He kicked Stilson in the face. Jeez. Further emphasis on his brutality. And the certainty his statement, right? He's not just saying that. He's not just saying, oh, you'll see, I'll get you. He's demonstrating it. Blood from his nose spattered to the ground nearby. It wouldn't be this bad, Ender said. It would be worse. He turned and walked away. Nobody followed him. He turned a corner into the corridor leading to the bus stop. He could hear the boys behind him saying, geez, look at him, he's wasted. Ender leaned his head against the wall of the corridor and cried until the bus came. I am just like Peter. Take my monitor away, and I am just like Peter. Dang. Okay, so the end of this chapter has this crazy moment here. The attitude displayed by the character here is in complete opposition to the rest of the passage. And we know this is genuine because of that first person point of view, right? Not an observation by the narrator. So we know then the previous behaviors were out of necessity, performative almost, right? He's putting on a show. And he fears his own brutality. And he says, I'm just like Peter. Okay, so earlier in this chapter, we get kind of briefly introduced to his brother, who's totally vicious. They have a strained relationship. And Ender fears him on some level. And it seems like here, he not only fears him because of his brutality, but he fears him because he sees him in himself. Right? But crying shows some remorse. And in this society where we have these young kids getting trained up to fight in this intergalactic battle, we see that he's clearly capable of being brutal if he has to be, right? He rationalizes his way through this scene, kicking this kid in the face, because he knows he has to end it or else it will continue on forever. But he feels remorse after the event. That's a big burden to carry for a child. And so even in this first chapter, we see this really intricate internal conflict that's at odds with these expectations that adults have of this child in this futuristic society. So this is a really rich passage. As you can see, we spent a lot of time on it. This is a really rich passage, worth discussing, worth analyzing, and we can see that this moral dilemma is significant. It's about the main character, and it's leading to this big conflict that the society is dealing with in the book. So that's what thoughtful annotation looks like. That is what it looks like to study a work of literature as you read rather than reading for leisure. They're just different experiences. I hope this is helpful to you. I hope that you use different kinds of strategies that work for you, that you don't overwork yourself and do what we just did on every page. Do it when something's significant. Do it when something strikes you. That's what's going to be worth your while. Good luck.